Hi, my name is Kate Genby. I'm a sociology PhD candidate at the University of Arizona. And this is the second video in a series on how to append, merge, and collapse your data within Stata. So this video we're going to be doing is looking at how you merge data. So merge works in a very similar way to append. In both cases, you've got a master data set, and then you're adding using data and either that can be one using data set or several using data sets that you're adding on to your master data. So when you're using append, you're using the master and using, but it's not quite as apparent kind of what master is and what using is. Whereas when you're merging data sets, it becomes more important to know which is your master data set, which is your using data set, and any differences you have between them. And this is because you're using merge when you have multiple data sets with the same cases but different variables. Or you can also add where you have multiple kind of cases that are assigned to other cases. So this would be a many to one or a one to many situation. And then you can even merge data sets where you're both adding variables as well as cases. So that would be a many to many merge. So I'm going to go through each of these different types of merges so you get a better idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to preserve this data set so that we can get back to where we started after I do some commands. And I'm going to try first merging one-to-one based on the order in this data set and the data set that we're adding to it. So the command for that is a merge. Actually, I'm going to pull up the data set name. So we'll be adding data set 2 onto it. We're going to merge one-to-one, and then we do an underscore n to show that it's the order that the items are appearing in, and then we're going to do it using this data set. And so we see that all of the items were matched, all 15. And if we browse, we can kind of get a sense of what the data actually looks like now. So I've added on these new variables. And you can also see that it's created this new variable called underscore merge. And it tells us that all of them are a score of 3, which means that both data sets matched with each other. So that gives you a sense of what our data set looks like. And then, so that's one way that you can merge your data. The way that we merge the data where it's in order makes it really important that you actually sort the data set first. So let me store what we have, or not store, we're going to restore what we were at before the preserve, before we added stuff on. So now I'm going to actually sort the data set based on the, let's do the number of bedrooms. And we're going to merge once again using that same data set. So you see that all the items matched, but when we browse them now, they're going to be in a different order based on the number of bedrooms for this half, the first using part of the data set, or the master part of the data set is sorted by the number of bedrooms, but the part of the data set that we've merged onto it was not actually sorted by bedrooms. It was sorted by a different variable. So we have one data set and it looks like it's great, but in fact, it mixed the wrong master data set with it's mixed up the variables in the master data set with the using data set. So we actually have this completely faulty, illegitimate data set now where the using half and the master don't match each other. So a safer way for us to actually merge these data sets, instead of just doing it in number where we have to worry and make sure everything's sorted properly, is to sort based on, or have it merge using specific variables so it can match up an identifying variable or set of variables in the two different data sets to make sure that we're getting the right information. I'm going to actually clear what we have and open a different data set. that has the identifying information that we need. So we're going to use data set 3, and I'll describe it, what it looks like. So we have 15 observations, 12 variables, and these include the batch number, the district code, the EA number, and the age. And these are actually, I need these 4 variables all together in order to be able to uniquely identify this set of data with the data set that I want to merge onto it. So we're going to merge 1 to 1, but we take out the underscore n, and instead we're going to add in the specific variables that we're going to use in order to distinguish which line goes with which other line in the 2 different data sets. So I'm adding in each of those variables. So now we have these 4 variables that that Stata is going to use to identify which cases go together in the master data set and the using data set. So we'll run that, and again we see all 15 matched. And I'll describe it. And so now we see there's a bunch more variables. We're up to 34 variables and 15 observations. And I'll browse again just so you can get a sense of what this looks like. And again, we see that the merge says that they're matched for every single case. So if something hadn't matched properly, then we would get a score of either a 1 or a 2. A 1 means that we only have the data from the master data set, and a 2 means that we only have the data from the using data set. And so you'll see a couple more examples of those as I move on. So now I'm going to show you how to do a one-to-many merge. And so for this, I'm using a household data set. And so far I've opened the piece of the data that looks at the actual household data as opposed to the individuals within the household. So I'm going to describe the data so you get a sense of what it looks like. So we have a whole bunch of different variables, and we have 26,134 households and 97 variables. And again, I should note that my memory is set to 2 gigabytes, so that way we have plenty of memory free as we're adding on these additional data sets. So in order to merge the data, we're going to be merging it with a person data set, and we're doing a merge that is one many. So each one household will have many people within that house. And then we also are identifying the exact variable in this case, or sometimes it would be a set of variables to identify which cases in one data set match with the other cases in the other data set. For this one, all we need is their unique number, and that should be enough to match them. So the merge has worked, and we see that there have been 106,650 matches, and that they all matched successfully. So I'm going to describe the data set again. And we see there's even more variables in there now. So now we have 106,650 observations and 150 variables. In Stata, you can also do a many to one merge. So for this, I'm basically going to do merge the same 2 data sets, but in a different order. So in this case, our master data set is the person data, and then we want to merge using the household data set. So let me describe the data so you can see what we're starting out with. So here you see we have all 106,650 observations, but only 56 variables. So what we're going to be doing is basically adding the households to the people. So since you have multiple people living within the same household often, several people will have the same household data added on to their information. So we're going to merge using the household data. And again, this is a many to one, so an m to 1. And the variable we're using to identify them is the unique number. And then we're using this household data set. We do the merge, we see that everything matched properly, and I'm going to describe the data one more time so you can see what that looks like. So here we see that we have our 106,650 observations. Once again, we're back up to 150 variables as well. And so basically we have the same, we've come to kind of the same endpoint, but one was using the one-to-many merge, and then this was using the many-to-one merge. So I'm not going to bother showing an example of many-to-many because there's very few cases when you're actually going to want to be adding data sets that way. But if you were, it would just be a merge M to M, and then you follow the same thing where you're including which variables are being used to match up the cases. And then you say using in whatever data set you're adding on. What I do want to show you is what happens when some of the variables don't actually come through in the merge so that you can see what that looks like. So right now we are using the person data set, and I'm going to actually merge on the worker data set. So we can assume that every person in this not every person in this data set is going to also be an employee. They're not going to have a job and have that information. So we can assume that this data set that we're going to add on is not going to be a perfect match with all of the people data that we have. So we're going to merge, and it's a one-to-one. Each person has their own employee information. And so we're using the unique number and then also their person number to match up their data in these two data sets. We have two variables here to match that information. And then we're using this worker data set. And actually, let me copy that. So before we do that, I'm going to describe the data. So again, you see we have our 106,650 people and 56 observations. Now we merge one-to-one, and so we see that one of the variables that was long is now a double variable. We'll want to check up on that and make sure nothing was lost in that transition. And then we also know that 35,000 of 658 of the observations were not matched. So these were data where we have information on the person, but not on them as a worker. And so they're now, for the variable underscore merge, they are 1. Everything that was in the using data set, so all of the worker information matches up with a person, which is what we were hoping for. So none of our variables have an underscore merge equals 2. And then finally, we have our 70,992 people who were matched. So that means the data in our master data set on them as people matched with our using data set on them as workers. And so I'll describe this one more time so you can see what it looks like. So we've got 109 variables now and still the same number of observations. I'm actually going to browse the data set just so you can get a sense of what this looks like for people who have missing data from the using data set. So here we can see that 8 and 9, and then 24, 25, and 26 are, and then also number 15 are people who we have information on them as people, but we don't have any employee information. And this might be because they're unemployed or because they're children, something like that. So that gives you a sense of what this data actually looks like. And the big data set, you can do it with a much smaller data set. But this is how we can merge this information across different people in different data sets. Since this video is getting so long, I'm actually going to stop it here and create a part 2 on how to do merges. So stay tuned and watch the next video.